Very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and hopefully a very early good morning also to some of you. But thank you all and a very warm welcome to the annual meeting of the Validate Network. In view of the COVID, as Blakely mentioned, we have had to stagger the meeting so that we could have maximal participation. Perhaps the good side is that we have many more from all over the world, which we perhaps would not have been able to do if we had a physical meeting. As you know, Validate is an international network of researchers who are developing vaccines against globally significant diseases, the pathogen being an intracellular pathogen. So the aim was really of this network is to exploit the synergy of the immunobiology or the pathology of these intracellular pathogens so that vaccine research could be expedited. And in particular, 4 diseases were focused on, which was tuberculosis, leishmaniasis, melioidosis, and leprosy. So this network really provides a very unique opportunity, and we have the privilege of hearing from many of the researchers who were funded through this network. They will be telling us about the work that they did, about the collaborations that they set up, because this was really aimed to be a cross-pathogen analysis, cross-discipline collaborations, and integrate the data from the various diseases. So we'll start today with Professor Helen McShane introducing us and setting the ball rolling for this annual meeting. To tell you a little bit about Professor Helen, she is the Validate Network Director, and she's also the director of the Oxford NIHR Biomedical Research Center. She is a professor of vaccinology at Oxford University. She is the deputy head of the Translational and Personnel Medical Sciences Division and an honorary consultant physician in the Infectious Diseases Department. She has led the tuberculosis vaccine research group since 2001. And I hand over to Professor Helen to set the ball rolling for the annual meeting. Over to you, Helen.
Mitali, thank you so much, and thank you for opening this meeting. I'm delighted to welcome you all to what is now our 4th Validate annual meeting. And as Mitali says, Validate is a network we established 4 years ago to catalyze vaccine research and development, particularly for our 4 focus pathogens, which as Mitali says, TB, leishmaniasis, leprosy, and burkholderia. We chose these pathogens because they're complex, and to be frank, that was a euphemism for difficult in the grant proposal. They share microbiological and immunological features, and of course, for all of them, we need new or better vaccines. It's been an extraordinary couple of years for all of us, and of course, that's evident in the fact we're all meeting on Zoom today rather than face-to-face. And I share Mitali's view that although that's not as nice as meeting face-to-face, it does allow more people to participate, which is a great thing. But I think reflecting back on the last 2 years, and it has been an extraordinary 2 years, there has never been a better time to be a vaccinologist. Vaccines are in the news all the time at the moment. And to be clear, happily, SARS-CoV-2 is a pathogen it's relatively easy to make a vaccine against. We were lucky. But it is humbling to see what is possible when huge amounts of funding are thrown at a global pandemic that affects presidents and prime ministers, as well as poor people. Yes, in 2020 to 2021, SARS-CoV-2 has killed a lot of people. When I looked it up last night, it was 4,644,508. But TB, that old pathogen that has been around since the pharaohs, kills 1.4 million people every single year. That's 14 million every decade, or 3,835 every single day. And whilst with a huge amount of global effort around the world on drugs, on diagnostics, and on vaccines, and on TB control programs everywhere, we are making progress. It is nowhere near as fast as it should be. The COVID pandemic has impacted very negatively on control programs for other infectious diseases, particularly in low and middle income settings, and many of you will be very familiar with this. We await the latest TB data from WHO with some trepidation, and I'm quite sure the same is true for leishmaniasis, melioidosis, and possibly leprosy. So as we start to see our way out of the COVID pandemic, let us start to work together more than ever and use the lessons we've learned about new technologies, RNA platforms, about how things can be done more quickly, about how we can do things not necessarily in parallel, one by one, how we can do things in parallel, not necessarily one by one in sequence, and how we can do a lot more quickly if we have more funding, and really start to apply these lessons to older pathogens. Because if we're not careful, these older pathogens that have been around for decades and centuries will still be responsible for deaths around the world when the next pandemic comes along. We have some really fabulous talks today. I do hope you enjoy them. Thanks to Sam and Blakely for a huge amount of behind the scenes organisation to bring this to you today. I hope you have a good day. Thank you for supporting Validate. Back to
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Helen. And I think you've really set the theme for what Validate really is for, what Validate will remain. And I think this was really the nicest part, is that we were able to bring together, the barriers to vaccine development are perhaps very common. And this was probably one of the unique ways that one could actually help to expedite vaccine development. Okay, so a very warm welcome to you, Dr. Himangi Bhardwaj. Dr. Himangi it's wonderful to have you here because you represent the UK, India. So to tell you a little bit about Dr. Himangi, she is the Senior Health Advisor of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office Network in India. So she's really a bridge between India and UK as far as science and technology goes. Being a medical professional herself, I think she's very best be able to guide us of what we can do as we take things forward. So the overall mandate of Himangi's work is to contribute to a stronger, a wider, and a more deeper and a mutually beneficial UK-India health partnership. And what better is a sort of a prime example, perhaps, is the Validate network itself. So Himangi, we'd like to hear from you as how we can take this further. So over to you, Himangi.
Thank you so much for this, and I'm actually humbled to be, with a group that is sort of so established, and really proud to represent the FCDO today. A big thanks to the Validate network and to the entire team. And apologies, the confirmation came in quite at the end, mostly because of miscommunication our side, because internally the High Commissioner did want to attend but wasn't able to, so I'm representing him today. So I'll start again by thanking you for having me here. And a quick sort of, just a very quick clarification is that I will talk a little bit about Newton, but Newton is one part of what we've done on health and life sciences with India. But I think given that the group is quite interested in vaccines, I will talk a little bit about our wider work on health with India, and hope to engage with all of you actually now, even after the event, and hope to stay in touch. So I think I'll start by saying that I couldn't agree more with how we started, that though of course we're still in the middle of a pandemic and we're starting to look at health work, etc., but one thing that's happened over the last year and a half, and something we've seen happen acutely, is health coming sharply into focus. And having been with the Foreign Office for about 9 years now, I think I've never seen health being more important to the sort of UK-India relationship, seeing it from a Delhi point of view. So I think in that sense, this really brought our role sharply into focus and said, sort of challenged us to look at how UK and India could respond together, what global health approaches could look like. And so, with a big thanks for the introduction, my role at the High Commission is to lead all government-to-government engagement on health and life sciences. And so what I'll do is use the next 2-3 minutes to just give an overview of how we have approached our work on health with India, and then very happy to take questions or engage with the team later. So UK and India have traditionally had a very strong relationship on health. I know tuberculosis was mentioned, and this is one area that we really want to do more on. So it will be interesting to see how the discussion progresses. But I think one of the things we've sort of realized is that, of course, governments come in and can provide direction and funding, but there is a living bridge that exists between the UK's health system and Indian practitioners, and the Indian health system and UK's practitioners. And this bridge has sort of underpinned the strength of the bilateral relationship on health. And so for the two countries, the areas that we are now focusing on, I think the last year and a half has been quite a lot about the COVID pandemic response. Within that, I think the big success on vaccines that we've seen is the way the Oxford University AstraZeneca candidate was designed in the UK, manufactured in India, and then made available to the whole world. I think that, and how that now can move towards vaccine equity, better supply for COVAX, I think that has been a big piece of our work. And to support this, we launched a UK-India Vaccines Hub late last year. The hub has three components. It looks at regulatory cooperation. So the drug regulators across the two countries work quite closely so that we can, regulate effectively, on time, make sure there aren't delays. We also have a vaccine task force cooperation. So the vaccine task forces in the two countries work together quite closely. I think a recent success of that engagement has been the decision on school reopening in India, which is something that the task forces have been talking from the deployment side for quite some time. So vaccine targeting, looking at evidence from the two countries on how vaccine rollout should progress, etc. That's another component of the vaccines hub. And the third component of the vaccines hub is less about the manufacturing and the science side and more about the sort of rollout. So this third component is more about innovation and moonshots, and this is about how do you look at, say, hot supply chains rather than cold chains. How can you have other mechanisms of delivery, intranasal vaccines, etc. So this is the bit of the vaccines hub that I think would be of quite an interest to the group here, because we're looking to fund this more and look at more closer collaboration between scientists in the two countries on distribution systems as well as delivery systems for vaccines, etc. As of now, the hub has been focused quite a lot on COVID-19, but we're hoping that, from the next financial year onwards, we will start looking at other vaccines and other sort of products as well. We also plan to expand this hub into therapeutics and diagnostics, but we haven't reached there yet. I think our main focus on therapeutic side for this year is the launch of an Indian arm of the recovery trial. So that is something we're trying quite hard to do with the government of India. But I think we will slowly expand more into wider therapeutics and diagnostics as we progress ahead. So that has been sort of like our focus on the vaccine side. We've now also got, because I heard data mentioned, so I think it'll interest you to know that we are also looking at a expanded health data, bioinformatics, and genomics partnership between the two countries. And here what we're trying to do is to set up a genomics sequencing hub in India that will probably also support the region. And we are going to use the National Variant Analysis platform from the UK as the blueprint. There is also conversation ongoing around a more computational biology focused bioinformatics hub that we are discussing with the Department of Biotechnology in India. And hopefully that is something that will come online in the next year and a half. We are also working on a joint One Health slash zoonotics focused hub. So this is more sort of upstream work where, we look at pandemic preparedness, maybe zoonotic surveillance, and link this to antimicrobial resistance. Again, I'll be keen to hear from the group, I think in slower time, on the link you see between antimicrobial resistance, tuberculosis, etc. Because to us, at least for the FCDO, we are trying to focus our funding, and Fleming Fund is of course the main one here, on not just surveillance, but also on sort of antimicrobial stewardship. And we think that in the aftermath of sort of like the pandemic, this is going to become quite a big issue with antibiotic prescriptions going up, etc. So this is another area that links into the Prime Minister's 5-point plan. and pandemic preparedness, possibly going over to multilateral reform, example WHO, but that is, I think, slightly longer term, much more focused on One Health and zoonotic surveillance for now. On the health systems side, we're looking to work with the government of India on, not just a knee-jerk reaction to COVID response. So not just say supply of oxygen concentrators, etc., when we are in a crunch, but also on building back better. And we're trying to do this through a very focused cooperation between the NHS and India's National Health Authority, looking at things like digital solutions, telemedicine, quality of care, and fraud, etc., in the health system. So I know this is less of the science side, but then this is more on the delivery side. Just thought this would sort of impact the work of this group, I think, in how vaccinations are taken up. So better health communication. And I think especially in diseases like tuberculosis, how do you actually bring in the community? How do you actually look at solutions are available at lower cost? And through institutional structures, rather than being more dependent on, how much a person can actually afford to access care. So that, I think, completes the sort of health system side. And to just add on how we see our role here is that we work through 3 or 4 teams at the High Commission. So we've got a very focused research team, which is called UK Research and Innovation. So I'm sure most of you are aware of UKRI, and it works with Innovate UK. So UKRI is more of our direct funder. They work directly with DBT and give out, calls for researchers, etc., calls for proposals. So that is our direct funding arm. We've then got the Science and Innovation Network here that, including the Newton Fund, looks at more horizon scanning, sort of starting partnerships between research groups in India and the UK, and less on the actual funding of the research. Newton Fund has, over the last 2 years or so, supported vaccine work, particularly rotavirus. I know that was supported a lot. So Professor Gagandeep Kang's work was supported quite a lot in India by initially, by the Science and Innovation Network. But we are hoping that now we've got an institutionalized vaccines hub, we will slowly get a better mechanism of getting researchers together from the 2 countries. So obviously this is not to replace the science, but just to sort of provide the framework so that we can work better with the Indian government and provide the resources that the Indian and British scientists require. And I think just to finish, the formal structures that we work through is that we've got a Science and Innovation Council with the Indian government, so that is held bilaterally. We also have memorandums of understanding between the 2 governments on health and life sciences, and we are hoping that the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care can come out to India sometime later this year and cement this partnership, especially focused on the vaccine side. So I think I'll stop here because it's in a bit of a monologue, but very happy to take questions and to discuss more on any parts of this if it's of interest. Thanks a lot.
Okay, we have a little time, so if there's anybody who would like to ask Himangi any, I think this is excellent to give us a very broad overview of what really, how we can, involve all the researchers at different levels. And I think it's very important, as you said, is having this living bridge, because it's really very important for any work that gets done in the lab to be able to actually be taken. This is very critical for vaccine development, I think. So thank you so much. And we hope to have you as an active participant in our group, because as I said all the diseases that the Validate network really works on is something where the UK-India partnership actually at the different levels that you mentioned, that at a research, at a sort of a training level, as well as subsequently it can be actually taken forward. So how does one actually get this information? If how does one actually link in? I mean, if you could share the links, perhaps, on the chat, if you could share the links of how people could, log on to the UK Vaccine Hub, I think that would be very useful, and we could sort of, benefit from that. So thank you so much. And we hope that you will be with us and you can hear the different aspects of research that have been done as a part of the Validate network. So thank you so much, Himangi. So I'll now move to Sam. I'm sorry for the little mix-up that I had. I had a different schedule. So good morning, Sam, and once again, a warm welcome to you on this network. As all of you know who have worked with the Validate network, Sam is really our go-to person, and she has really, I mean, without exaggerating, she's really held the whole thing together and brought us together. So over to you, Sam, and to take us through the little journey that we've all been a part of.
Thank you, Mitali. Right, let me just try and share my screen. Do that one. Okay, Blakely, can you just, or Mitali, can you just confirm that you can see my presentation?
I can see.
Is it in presentation mode as well?
Yes,
yeah?
Yes, it is.
It's not in presentation mode.
It's not in presentation mode. There you go. Better?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Mitali, for very kind words, and welcome everybody to the 4th Validate annual meeting. We're all really delighted that so many of you could join us today. As most of you hopefully know, or at least know of me, I'm Sam for Mark, and I'm the Validate Network Manager, so I run the network on a day-to-day basis. And today I'm going to give us a brief update on Validate, and particularly our journey so far, but also our plans ahead. So Validate actually started on the 1st of June 2017, so we're now 4 years in, and we've achieved so many great outputs in those 4 years. So as I say, in my update, I'm going to cover what we've achieved so far, but also what we've coming up for all of you, what we have coming up for all of you, our members. Okay, so I would hope, as you know, that you would all know, and particularly as Mitali also mentioned it, that Validate is an international network of researchers working on vaccine R&D for 4 complex intracellular pathogens that cause significant mortality and morbidity across the globe, but particularly in LMICs, and that are neglected in terms of research funding and effort. And the 4 pathogens that we cover are those that cause TB, leishmaniasis, melioidosis, and leprosy. And our vision from the start has been to create an engaged and interactive community, to accelerate vaccine development for our focus pathogens, to help early career researchers progress their research and their careers. And the way that we have been doing this is to, let me just move my bar out of the way, is to increase collaborations and information dissemination, both across pathogens, across our focus pathogens, also across species, so both target and model species, across continents, countries, research groups, and also across disciplines. And Validate is an open network, so we welcome anyone who's working on anything that can impact, inform, or feed into accelerating vaccine development for our focus pathogens. So we aim to be truly interdisciplinary, and we have members working in many different research areas, which you can see here. So we cover research from basic science all the way through to translational clinical trials, human and animal health, a wide range of biological science areas, diagnostics and public health, including members who are clinicians and nurses, as well as areas such as project management, bioinformatics, mathematical modelling, epidemiology. We have members working in policy and scientific communication, bioethics, and then through to social science, psychology, as well as chemistry and structural biology. We also welcome any level of researcher, so we have members who are students all the way through to PIs, and we also welcome interested members of the general public. And our members also come from all types of institutes. So we have people from academia, from governmental organisations, from industry, and as well as from the charity sector. So we really are open. So back in 2017, when we pulled together our expression of interest for the UK Medical Research Council application to initiate the Validate, we had on our EOI 32 members from 22 institutes in 8 countries. And over the last 4 years, this has grown substantially. So I took these numbers a couple of days ago. This month, we've got now 467 Validate members from 232 institutes across 68 countries. So we are really proud of the global interest that there's been in joining Validate. And the great news is we're still continuing to grow. So what have we actually achieved over the last 4 years? So Validate held 4 rounds of pump priming funding, where members, so this is where for our pump priming funding, members could apply for up to £50,000 per project for 12 months. And projects had to be collaborative with at least 2 institutions taking part in the project. And because we were funded by the UK's MRC, each project had to include a UK partner, which is why the funding is a little bit dominated by the UK institutions on here. But we did fund in total 22 projects and involved 14 countries overall. We also funded across our focus pathogens. So sadly, we didn't have any leprosy applications, but you can see in the bar chart on the right that we had a fairly good spread across our other 3 pathogens and also some social science studies. And in fact, these figures don't include a vaccine hesitancy project that we co-funded with our sister vaccine networks that was also social science. We're also particularly proud that almost half of these funded projects were led by ECRs, which is likely to be hugely beneficial to their research and careers going forwards. We had lots of great outputs and findings from our projects, and they'll be giving talks over the next 3 annual meeting days so that you can hear about all of these in more detail. So another aspect that Validate has achieved is that we awarded 2 fellowships in 2018 that provided salary and consumables for 2 ECRs who were looking to move forward towards independence. And these were originally for 2 years, but with COVID, they extended into 2021. So Rachel will be speaking about her project later today and Yomin on one of the later days in the year, but both have achieved some fantastic outputs and they found their fellowships extremely beneficial to their careers. So we look forward to seeing how they go on in the future. Another output that Validate had was training grants. So postdoctoral associate members could apply for training grants of up to £3,000 to participate in an opportunity that would aid their career, including attending a course or workshop, a laboratory exchange where they visited another lab to gain knowledge and expertise that they could then take back to their home institute, which is a really great capacity building opportunity, obviously. And LMIC members could also apply to cover costs to speak at a conference. So we funded 32 Validate ECRs in total from a variety of different countries. And in addition to that, we funded 3 places on the Vaccinology in Africa course in 2019 and 2 places on University of Cape Town's flow cytometry workshop in 2019. And again, many of our ECRs have found these grants an invaluable opportunity. And so I'm not expecting you to read this on a small screen, but just to give you a couple of examples. So these are a couple of examples of some of our training grants holders. And actually you can find these case studies on our website. So for example, Eduardo Ramos Sanchez, who's from USP in Brazil, visited Helen McShane's group at Oxford to learn about the MGIA assay, as well as some other assays from the lab. And his visit, which I think was a month long, provided opportunities on both sides to learn from each other, but also to consider future TB leishmaniasis collaborative work, which after all, cross-pathogen remit was very much Validate's focus. And what was really great that when Eduardo went back home to his lab in Brazil, they have now since obtained a license to work with mycobacteria, and they can now work with 2 different experimental models. So in addition to this, for example, a couple of other examples, Patrice Mawa from Uganda went to a flow cytometry course in the UK that allowed him to introduce to different flow techniques and also allowed him to network with flow users around the world. Isadora Lima, who's from Brazil, again came to the UK to do a laser capture microdissection course that she now teaches a short course on back in Brazil, and she's also developed protocols on this technique in her home lab. Farah Isse Mumin from Somalia attended our vaccinology workshop, and this has improved his undergraduate teaching and connected him to researchers in nearby Ethiopia, which he's found really useful. And Shraddha Sewakoti from Nepal visited Andrew Cooper's lab at Leicester to discuss and determine the tools and activities they required to set up a new immunology laboratory back in Nepal at her home institute. And again, found it hugely useful to talk to more senior investigators to see a set up laboratory and find out more about what their requirements would be. So these have all been hugely useful. And as I say, there are many more examples. I could have picked many others, and you'll find these case studies on our website. So a further Validate output has been our events. We've had annual meetings face-to-face in 2017, 18, 19, an understandable hiatus in 2020, and then obviously this virtual annual meeting in 2021. And for the face-to-face meetings, we provided 26 travel scholarships to LMIC members to assist with them attending in person to the events. We've also held 12 virtual seminars highlighting 19 of our researchers' work, because the seminars have 1 to 2 speakers, and that includes some of our industry partners who have given talks. We had a BCG 100 programme to celebrate the centenary of BCG's creation this year in 2021. And we had 2 keynote talks for this that were virtual by 4 world-leading scientists, and this enabled a global community to access these talks, as well as the general public. We had quite a few non-members attend as well, which is great. And then we've had a Validate for Schools programme. So we've had 2 talks for schools so far by 4 of our members that have reached over 300 school kids, discussing vaccines, immunology and careers in STEM. And these have been really extremely positively received. And then we've had plenty of workshops to keep everyone busy. We've had lots of ECR workshops across the years for career support and progression over many different topics. We've co-hosted the vaccinology workshop with the other networks out in Bangkok that I mentioned earlier. We also held a melioidosis vaccine symposium in 2019 that I'll come on to in more detail in just a moment. And we've held a virtual collaboration workshop to try and get everyone building their networks. And many of these talks were actually recorded and are available via our website if you want to catch up on anything you missed. So one particular highlight for Validate's outputs, and one of our really big successes that we're really proud of, came through the melioidosis vaccine symposium. So in fact, initial discussions between researchers working on melioidosis across the globe, but who knew each other but hadn't worked together before, actually started at our 2018 Validate annual meeting, and they seem to be bearing fruit, and so we moved them into targeted discussions at this 2019 Validate workshop, which was called the Melioidosis Vaccine Symposium, Moving from Animal Models to Man. And the idea was to bring together melioidosis vaccine researchers to discuss the roadmap to first-in-man melioidosis vaccine clinical trials. But we also brought in some of our TB researcher members to provide the lessons learned from the TB field when moving vaccine candidates from animals to humans. And this workshop was enormously successful and everyone found it really helpful. And in fact, out of that, a new UK, USA, Thailand collaboration was formed, which linked lab-based vaccine developers with clinical trial researchers and their facilities. And this new collaborative team, and you can see the members on the right-hand side of my screen, actually successfully gained £3.2 million MRC-DPVS grant. And they've also got further DTRA funding to run the first ever human clinical trial of a melioidosis vaccine. So it is really exciting that Validate and our members have directly contributed to the development pathway of a candidate melioidosis vaccine, and that the first ever human trial will be taking place. So I know that the start of the trial was slightly held up by COVID, understandably, but I believe this trial should be starting either towards the end of this year or early next year. And we really look forward to seeing what comes out of this collaboration and this trial in the future. And again, this is a case study you can see on our website if you want to have a deeper look at it. So another important Validate output has been information dissemination, and we have a wide range of communication streams that we use via which you can get useful information for your research and career. So we have, of course, our website, which we hope is a one-stop shop or a hub for you to be able to find everything you need for your research and career. So we list everything we can spot, basically, from any grant calls that we think will be relevant for you, training opportunities, job vacancies, publications, events, and just news and views, opinion pieces. So we're hoping, the idea is that rather than you having to scour the web, look at all the different websites, for example, for all the funders to find what relevant calls, what calls are out there that are relevant to you and that are open, you can just come to the Validate website and use that as a hub to give you all the information in one place easily for you at your fingertips. There's also a weekly roundup that we do each Wednesday. So rather than you having to keep trawling through the website looking for what's new, it's all in one place for you on the news tab. So we hope that that's really useful to you all. We also have a Twitter account. Excitingly, we've just passed 1,000 followers. And this, again, we post and retweet anything that we can spot, such as grant calls, or even opinion pieces that we think will be of use and relevance to you, our members. So do follow us if you are on Twitter. You should be receiving a quarterly newsletter that we've been doing since 2017, again updating you on everything we're up to and what's coming up. We also have a LinkedIn account to encourage you all to connect with each other and to share job vacancies, etc. We have a YouTube channel with videos from our events that are publicly available. And then we also have a Microsoft Teams hub that's members only, that contains lots of information, but in particular an ECR channel for ECR networking, some of our, all of the shared SOPs and protocols that you might find useful are stored there. And also on the hub are recordings of members only events, and that includes all of the talks from the annual meeting should be uploaded there. So over the last 4 years, we've run a lot of different comms events, communication items. We celebrate World Days, such as World NTD Day, often with blog posts or interviews with members. We have had big events like the centenary of the BCG vaccine this year, and we also highlight our members' research in our comms events. So you can see all of the comms on our website and on our social media. So other activities and outputs that Validate has brought as well include a mentoring scheme where postdoctoral associates and early PI investigators could apply to be paired with a senior Validate PI to provide career and research support and guidance. And a mentor can make a huge difference to your career. So we paired 16 mentees over 4 calls, and many of these have found their mentoring relationship hugely beneficial. In terms of data sharing, from 2018 to 2020, Validate had a dedicated bioinformatician available to support members, and they also set up a data sharing portal. And the idea behind this was for us to facilitate members to make comparisons of similar data sets, published and unpublished, and compare them across pathogens, species, countries, research groups, trials, etc., to try and find new lessons to learn from the data that we already all hold between us. Unfortunately, this facility was not used as much as we'd hoped, so we have actually discontinued the bioinformatician post and the data portal. But we do list available data sets that members hold, and particularly those from any work that we fund. They're all listed on our website. So we would encourage you to firstly list your data here to encourage collaborations with other members. So just drop me an email if you have data sets you'd like listed there. And also we'd encourage you to take a look on the website at the list to see whether you can reanalyze the available data to gain new insights and novel publications that can move both your career and the research field forwards. We also have an equipment exchange scheme where, to save on landfill and to help capacity build, we help members who have surplus equipment find an LMIC lab who can benefit from that equipment piece. So do get in touch if you've got anything spare. We also received a small pot of additional Wellcome Trust funding to develop 3 educational games for 11 to 14-year-olds for use by teachers and also by researchers in outreach. And you can see screenshots here on your screen. In Little Lille on the left, players learn about the creation of the BCG vaccine in 1921. They have to run around and collect all the ingredients and speak to Pasteur and Guerin. And in our second game, they learn about the challenges of vaccine delivery. And you can see that on the right-hand side. They have to deliver the vaccine across urban and countryside escapes before hopefully getting the vaccine delivered before it overheats. So these 2 games are actually in beta version while we build the 3rd game. So please do try them out and give us your feedback, because we're continually improving them before ahead of full release. And you can find the links on our website or just get in touch with the Validate team and we can send these across to you. So a good example of our equipment exchange being really beneficial, and again, this case study is on our website, is when a BACTEC midget machine came up as surplus equipment at University of Oxford and APHA and was donated to researchers at the MRC UVRI LSHTM Uganda Research Institute. And so Validate actually coordinated both the donation and the shipment, and we contributed 50% of the shipping costs. So we can help with shipping costs for countries that are very low income and need the help. Now that the midget machine's in Uganda, it's greatly improved the unit's capacity to perform microbacterial culture for TB diagnosis and assays such as the MGIA, and this has created several new collaboration opportunities for the Uganda team, including participating in a multi-centre TB vaccine trial. In addition, members of staff and postgraduate students in the lab are trained to use the midget machine, and they can use it for their research projects. So this piece of equipment that would have just sat around in a lab otherwise has actually really helped out some of our members and in building up their both lab capacity, but also their research collaborations and their outputs. So we've achieved a lot, but what are our plans for the future? So currently our MRC grant runs out in 28th of February 2022, and we've had a number of no-cost extensions for various reasons, including COVID, that have extended that gradually. So that funding ends 28th of February. But what is really exciting, and you should have received an email from me in the last couple of weeks about this, is that we recently were awarded a further follow-on funding of $1.5 million or £1 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which will take Validate through to 2023. Now, sadly, this funding is for TB research only, but the management team fully appreciates and absolutely endorses that all 4 pathogens are crucial to Validate. And so we are hoping to use this Gates Foundation funding to leverage additional matched funding to be able to provide similar calls for the other 3 pathogens that we focus on. So this funding will be particularly targeted at groups that are underrepresented in research, and the Gates funding will provide 3 fellowships, and that call will be opening later this month. So I'll obviously ping all the relevant people an email that will be open to postdocs, so associate members. We'll be able to open a pump priming call for up to 6 projects that will open in early 2022. We'll have more training grants, our mentoring scheme will continue, and we'll be able to provide more workshops and annual meetings. And our ECR forum later today in this programme is an opportunity for our associate and affiliate ECR members to tell us what workshops and other training opportunities you would like. So I really look forward to hearing your thoughts then. And of course, we will of course continue with comms, our normal comms and events, particularly the website and seminars. So there's lots to look forward to, and we'll obviously keep you updated about any grants that come out. So just to finish, I want to say a thank you, particularly to our co-directors, Professors Helen McShane, Helen Fletcher, and now Sam Sampson, who has recently joined Helen and Helen on the directorship. And also to a big thank you to Blakely Nixon, our comms and events coordinator, for all his work on our events, particularly today and the other 2 annual meeting days, but also on the comms, and he's leading the computer games. So he's been working really hard over the last 18 months on all of these. A big thank you to our Network Management Board and Scientific Advisory Board members who have given their valuable time and expertise to make the network what it is today. And finally, thank you to all of you, our network members, because Validate is the sum of its members, and we know you have a lot of other pulls on your time. So we appreciate your engagement and enthusiasm within the Validate network to make it this thriving international community that it is. The past year, as Helen touched on, has shown the importance of vaccines in tackling infectious diseases for everyone globally. Next, we urgently need efficacious vaccines for TB, leishmaniasis, leprosy, and melioidosis. And we're excited at Validate to see what the future combined actions of Validate and all of our members will bring. So if you have any ideas for ways we can improve Validate or any questions, please just get in touch. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter or LinkedIn if you're on those 2. Thank you.